Alien girl was ready to jump until the human refused to let go. Rain poured from the black alien sky, cold and sharp. Neon lights flickered in the distance, turning the wet streets below into a blur of colors. High above the city, a narrow sky bridge connected to massive towers, swaying slightly in the wind. Jack was crossing that bridge on his way back from the cargo docks. He had no reason to stop, no reason to look up from his hood. Until he saw her. She was standing at the very edge of the railing. Her small alien frame was soaked, her clothes clinging to her body. The wind tugged at her long silver hair, whipping it across her pale face. Her bare feet gripped the slick metal toes curled like claws. One step forward and she would fall into the endless river of traffic far below. Jack froze. At first he thought maybe she was just looking down, maybe thinking. But then her fingers loosened from the rail. Her body leaned forward. He didn't think he ran. The wet metal under his boots was slippery. His heart slammed in his chest. The noise of the city seemed to vanish, replaced by the pounding in his ears. When he reached her, his hand shot out and grabbed her arm. Her skin was cold, too cold, almost lifeless. She gasped and twisted to look at him. Her eyes were strange, glowing faintly in the rain. "Let me go," she said, her voice trembling but sharp. "You don't know what you're doing." Jack tightened his grip. "You're about to jump," he said, breathless. "I'm not letting you." She tried to pull away. Her strength surprised him. She was stronger than she looked. But she didn't strike him, didn't scream for help. She just kept shaking her head. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If I go back, they'll kill us both." Those words stopped him for a second. Her, he could imagine, but him. He didn't even know her name. The wind howled between the towers. A low rumble of thunder rolled above, below. The streams of hovercars flashed past like rivers of light. If she fell, she wouldn't even hit the ground. In one piece, Jack shifted his stance, pulling her back step by step. Her knees buckled when her feet touched the center of the bridge. She didn't fight him anymore, but she didn't thank him either. She just kept looking over her shoulder, eyes darting into the darkness. Then Jack saw it too, at the far end of the bridge, in the shadows. Tall shapes moved, 3 of them, armored, their faces hidden behind black visors. They didn't walk like people in a hurry. They walked like hunters, and every step was slow, deliberate. "Friends of yours?" Jack asked quietly. Her jaw tightened. "They're not here to talk," she said. "They found me." Jack didn't know why his stomach turned cold. Maybe it was the way she said it. Maybe it was the way those figures didn't look at him at all, just her, as if he didn't matter, as if they had already decided he was nothing. The girl stood straighter now, but her voice shook. "If you let go, they might leave you alone." Jack almost laughed. "That's not really my style," he said. "Run," she hissed. He didn't move. Her glowing eyes locked on his. "Please," she whispered. "You can't fight them." One of the armored figures lifted his hand, a small red light flashing from the gauntlet. Something in the air changed, heavier, thicker. Jack had been in bad situations before. This felt worse. He grabbed her wrist tighter. "Then we don't fight them here," he said, and without waiting for her answer, he pulled her toward the middle of the bridge, away from the edge. Her feet slipped, but she kept up. The 3 figures began to follow, their footsteps slow but certain. The rain was coming harder now. Somewhere far below, sirens wailed. The city felt alive, watching, holding its breath. Jack didn't know her name, her crime, or her truth, but he knew one thing for sure. The second he let go, she was dead, and maybe so was he. Rainwater dripped from the edge of Jack's hood as the voice called his name. Deep and mechanical, echoing in the metal bones of the bridge, the alien girl's breath caught, her fingers tightening around his arm. "You know them?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Jack didn't answer, but his eyes locked on the 3 armored figures moving closer, their black visors reflecting the neon lights in cold streaks. He didn't wait for them to close the distance. "Move," he told her, tugging her forward. Her steps stumbled at first, but the moment one of the figures raised a long, humming blade, she found her speed. The narrow bridge ended in a wide plaza suspended between the towers, slick with rain, the air heavy with the smell of ion smoke from nearby hover bikes. They ran through the few nightwalkers still lingering there, earning startled looks and shouts. Jack's instincts told him not to look back. The girl glanced over her shoulder and froze mid-stride. "They're faster," she gasped. Jack caught a reflection in a shop window. The three black shapes weren't walking anymore. They were gliding, their boots emitting faint anti-grav pulses. In seconds, they would be on top of them. "Left," Jack ordered, yanking her toward a narrow street between two towering holosigns. The passage was dark and dripping, trash piled against the walls, flickering strips of light casting broken shadows. The girl's breathing was ragged, but she kept up. "They won't stop," she said. "Not until She bit off the last word. As if speaking it might make it real, a sudden hiss split the air, and the wall beside Jack's head exploded in a shower of sparks. He didn't stop to see the weapon. "Faster," he snapped, pulling her deeper into the alley. He knew these kinds of streets. Once you lost the open sky above, there were 100 ways to vanish, or 100 ways to be trapped. The sound of boots, or whatever those armored things wore, grew sharper behind them. Jack turned a corner and almost collided with a steel gate, locked, rusted, solid. The girl's eyes darted toward a small maintenance door to the side, half hidden behind a crate. Without hesitation, she dropped to her knees, pulling something from the folds of her soaked clothes, a thin shard of metal with alien symbols carved into it. In seconds, she had the lock hissing open. "Inside," she said, shoving the door wide. They slipped into the darkness beyond, the smell of oil and dust wrapping around them. Jack pushed the door shut just as a shadow passed the narrow window. He pressed his ear to the cold metal. The steps paused. A low, static-filled voice murmured something he couldn't understand, then silence. The girl's breathing was the only sound, quick and shaky. He turned to her, rainwater dripping onto the dusty floor between them. "Want to tell me what this is about?" he asked. Her glowing eyes met his, haunted and sharp all at once. "They're not soldiers," she said softly. "They're collectors." Jack frowned. "Collectors of what?" Her voice broke just enough for him to notice. "Of me," she whispered. Before Jack could ask more, a sudden pounding hit the door, 3 heavy blows that made the hinges rattle. The girl flinched and grabbed his sleeve. "They've found us." Jack's gaze darted around the dim room, shelves of broken machine parts, stacks of crates, a cracked skylight above. He pulled her toward the crates without explaining, shoving. 1 over 2 form a shaky ladder. "Climb," he ordered. She hesitated. "They'll see us on the roof. They'll catch us if we stay." Jack shot back. She climbed, quick and sure. Despite her shaking hands, the pounding on the door grew louder. Jack followed, hauling himself up, just as the lock gave a tortured scream, and the door burst inward. A beam of red light swept the room, hunting, but by then, they were gone. Swallowed by the rain and shadows above, from the roof, the city stretched in every direction, endless towers, endless lights, endless places to hide, or be hunted. The girl looked at him, her voice a mix of fear and disbelief. "You could have left me there." Jack's jaw tightened. "Not my style," he said, scanning for their next move. Far below, the black-armored figures stepped into the street, their heads tilting upward, in perfect unison. Jack knew they had only seconds before the chase began again, and something told him running was only delaying the real danger. The rooftop was slick and dangerous, the rain turning every step into a gamble. Jack led the way, boots slipping against the metal panels as the alien girl followed close, her bare feet almost silent despite the cold. She kept glancing over her shoulder, eyes glowing faintly, scanning the sky as if expecting more than just the 3 armored hunters. Finally, when they ducked into the shadow of a ventilation tower, She leaned against the wall and whispered, "We can't keep running like this." Jack's breath came in sharp clouds in the cold air. "You're the one who dragged me into it," he said. Her gaze dropped. "I didn't drag you. You grabbed me," she replied, and for the first time her voice wasn't sharp, but heavy, like the words cost her strength. Jack studied her for a moment, taking in the soaked clothes, the trembling fingers, the faint shimmer of alien markings along her neck. "Then tell me why they're after you," he said. "Tell me why my name was on their list." She hesitated, eyes narrowing as if she was weighing whether he'd run if he knew. "They worked for House Vera," she said, "at last. A royal bloodline, one that takes what it wants." Her hand went to her left wrist, pulling back the wet sleeve to reveal a faint glowing mark burned into her skin. It pulsed with its own light, the edges etched in a language Jack didn't understand. "This is a bond mark," she said. "Property branding." Jack's jaw tightened. "Property. They intend to give me to a warlord," she said, her voice cold. "Not for love. For heirs." Her tone was almost clinical, but her hands had curled into fists. "And you?" Jack asked. "What happens if they catch me?" She met his eyes. "They'll kill you before they touch me. It's their law." A low hum drifted over the wind, and Jack realized it wasn't the rain. It was the hunter's scanners, sweeping rooftops in slow, methodical arcs. The girl stepped closer, her voice suddenly lower, urgent. "There's something else," she said. "I didn't just run from them. I took something from the folds of her soaked clothes." She pulled out a small sphere, no bigger than a fruit, black glassy surface, laced with fine golden cracks. Inside, faint lights swirled like distant galaxies. Jack frowned. "What is it?" Her fingers tightened around it. "A map," she said. "To a weapon hidden on your world. A weapon made before the first alien war." Jack let out a short laugh. "So, I saved a fugitive thief who's holding stolen coordinates to a doomsday toy. You think I wanted this?" She snapped back. "If I destroy it, they'll hunt me for life. If I keep it, I need someone who can help me get it to safety." Jack leaned against the vent, rubbing a hand over his face. "And that someone is me, apparently." Her eyes softened just slightly. "You pulled me off that ledge, human. You're already part of this." Before he could answer, a faint metallic click echoed from the far side of the roof. Both froze. Through the rain, a black visor emerged, followed by another, then the third. They moved with the patience of predators, spreading out to cut off every escape path. The hum of their weapons grew louder, sharp enough to prickle the skin. Jack's instincts screamed at him. No time for questions. He grabbed her hand, the cold of her fingers cutting through the rain. "This map better be worth it," he muttered, and pulled her toward the only option left, a narrow maintenance hatch leading down into the darkness of the tower. The hunters didn't rush. They didn't need to. They knew the humans' world was a cage. And now, Jack was inside it with her. The maintenance shaft reeked of rust and stale air, each rung of the ladder slick beneath Jack's hands. The girl climbed above him, moving fast despite the darkness, her faintly glowing eyes the only light guiding them. Somewhere above, the metallic thud of boots on the roof faded, replaced by a deeper, heavier sound, something far too large to be human. Jack didn't like the way the metal walls seemed to vibrate with it. They dropped into a dim corridor, lined with pipes, steam hissing from cracked valves. Jack landed hard, knees bending to absorb the shock, while the girl barely made a sound. Her gaze darted left and right before she grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward the left passage without a word. The air grew hotter as they moved, the smell of burning oil clinging to the walls. Jack caught the faint rhythm of movement behind them. "They're still on us," he muttered. "They won't stop," she said, her voice steady now, almost resigned. It was the first time he realized she wasn't panicking anymore. She was preparing. They burst into a wider chamber, a machine room filled with rows of humming generators, their massive coils pulsing with dim blue light. The sound was deafening, the floor vibrating under each step. Jack scanned 4 exits, one heavy door on the far side, and a maintenance hatch high on the wall. Too far, too slow. The girl's eyes locked on him. "Can you fight?" she asked. Jack almost smiled despite himself. "I've been known to." He moved quickly, pulling a length of steel pipe from a rack and checking its weight. The girl stayed near the generators, her hands trembling slightly, as if she was gathering something unseen. The hum of the machines deepened, matching her breathing. Jack caught the faint shimmer around her fingers, tiny sparks, threads of golden light twisting between them. The first hunter stepped into the chamber, weapon raised, visor reflecting the electric blue glow. The second and third flanked him, spreading out in perfect sync. Jack's grip tightened. "You take the big one," he told her without thinking. She glanced at him sharply. "You can't kill them with that," she said, nodding at his pipe. "Maybe not," Jack replied, stepping forward, "but I can make them wish I could." He moved fast, closing the gap before they could aim. The first swing caught a hunter's weapon arm, jolting it sideways. A blast of red energy scorched the wall instead of his chest. Jack ducked under a second strike, slamming the pipe into a knee joint. With a hollow crack, the alien staggered, hissing something in its own language. Behind him, the girl let out a sharp breath and thrust her hands forward. Golden arcs of energy leaped from her palms, wrapping around the second hunter's chest. Like glowing vines, the hum of the generators surged, lights flickering violently. Jack didn't have time to stare. The first hunter recovered and charged. Jack sidestepped, jamming the pipe into the gap between armor plates at the waist. The alien roared and swung wide, missing by inches. The third hunter raised his weapon, aiming straight at the girl. Jack's body moved before his brain caught up. He threw the pipe like a spear, knocking the weapon aside just as it fired. The blast tore a hole in the ceiling, showering them in sparks. The girl's energy flared, bright enough to burn shadows onto the walls. The second hunter convulsed, armor locking up, before collapsing with a heavy clang. Jack didn't wait to see if it was dead. He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the far door. "That's your idea of not being able to kill them?" he shouted over the noise. She didn't answer, but her faint smile told him enough. They crashed through the exit into another passage, the air cooler now. Behind them, the surviving hunters didn't follow immediately. They were regrouping. Jack knew it wouldn't be long before they came again, and he had the feeling the next time they wouldn't underestimate the human with the pipe. The corridor beyond the generator room was silent, except for the drip of water somewhere far ahead. The sudden absence of the hunter's footsteps made Jack uneasy. Enemies that vanished without dying were the ones you had to worry about. The alien girl moved beside him, her breathing steady now, though the faint glow in her veins hadn't faded since the fight. It was like her body was still humming with the energy she'd unleashed. They found an old service hatch and slipped inside, sealing it behind them with a heavy metal bar. The space beyond was small, a forgotten maintenance bunker buried deep in the tower's bones. Dust floated in the stale air, disturbed by their every movement. Jack slid down against the wall, catching his breath while she knelt and sat. The black sphere between them, its golden cracks pulsed faintly, like the heartbeat of something alive. "Earlier," Jack said, nodding toward her glowing hands. "You didn't just shock them. You drew power from the machines." She looked up, her expression unreadable. "That's what I am," she said quietly. "My people call it core binding. I can channel energy, but it leaves a mark." She turned her wrist toward him, revealing faint new streaks of gold climbing up her forearm. Jack frowned. "And that's bad. It means I'm changing," she said. "Too much of it, and I stop being what I am now." He didn't press her. Not yet. Instead, he nodded at the sphere. "You said this is a map to a weapon. Why bring it here? Why not destroy it?" She traced one finger over its cracked surface, and tiny lights bloomed inside, shifting into the image of a world Jack recognized: Earth. "Because if I destroy it, House Vera will burn every city in their reach looking for the shards, she said. If I keep it, I need somewhere they can't follow. Or someone they can't stop. Jack raised an eyebrow. You're thinking that's me. Her lips twitched into something between a smile and a grimace. I'm thinking you're stubborn enough not to let go, she said, and stubborn is hard to kill. Before Jack could answer, the sphere flickered violently, the light inside flashing in irregular pulses. The girl's head snapped toward the door. They've locked onto us, she said. Jack was already on his feet. They're tracking the sphere. No, she whispered. They're tracking me. A deep vibration rolled through the floor, like something massive moving in the tower's lower levels. Jack's instincts screamed at him to run, but the girl stayed still, her eyes locked on the sphere, as if willing it to vanish. When the vibration stopped, a new sound rose, a faint, rhythmic clicking that echoed through the walls. The girl's voice was barely audible. They've sent a seeker. Jack had heard of those half-machine, half-beast, bred to hunt by scent and pulse. Once it had you, it didn't stop. Then we move, Jack said, grabbing the sphere and shoving it into his pack. The girl reached for his wrist, stopping him for just a second. If it catches me, she said, her eyes burning into his. You run. Jack shook his head. Not my style. The clicking was getting louder now, coming from somewhere beyond the hatch. Jack spotted a vertical shaft in the corner of the bunker, its ladder disappearing into the dark above. Up, he said, motioning her ahead. She climbed quickly, the faint glow of her skin making her look almost ghost-like in the shadows. Jack followed, the metal rungs groaning under his weight. Below, the hatch shuddered, and then the sound of claws scraping metal began to rise. Fast, they climbed without speaking, each breath sharper than the last. Somewhere above, a faint square of light promised another way out, but Jack could already feel the vibrations in the ladder as the seeker began its rapid ascent, and he knew they were about to find out just how hard it was to outrun something designed never to stop. The square of light above them grew larger, but so did the sound of metal tearing apart below. The seeker wasn't just climbing, it was ripping through the shaft walls as it came. The echo of claws on steel sharp enough to make Jack's teeth ache. The girl reached the top first, shoving against a rusted hatch, her bare shoulders straining. It stuck, she hissed. Jack didn't waste time arguing. He climbed the last few rungs in 2 quick bursts and rammed his shoulder into the hatch. The old hinges screamed before giving way, spilling them both out into blinding white light. They were on a landing pad high above the city, the storm rolling in thicker now. Lightning flashing between towers, the wind tore at their clothes, threatening to drag them back toward the open shaft. Jack slammed the hatch shut, wedging a loose beam of metal through the handle. The girl was already scanning the skyline, her gaze locking on the far end of the pad where a sleek, silver skimmer rested under a half-collapsed shelter. That our ride? Jack asked. It was supposed to be, she said, if they haven't disabled it yet. Jack gave a short laugh. With our luck, it's probably rigged to explode. She didn't smile. Her eyes were fixed on something over his shoulder. He turned just as the hatch behind them buckled, the sound of tearing steel rising over the wind. The seeker's head burst through first, a nightmare of metal plating and pale sinew, eyes burning with cold blue light. It didn't pause to climb. Out it launched, clearing half the pad in one bound, claws biting into the deck. Jack shoved the girl toward the skimmer. Go, he barked. She ran, but the seeker was already recovering, its head swiveling unnaturally as it tracked her heartbeat. Jack grabbed the closest thing he could find, a long steel tie rod from the shelter's collapsed frame, and planted himself between the creature and its prey. The seeker lunged. Jack sidestepped, slamming the rod into one of its 4 legs. The impact made it stumble, but not stop. The other claw lashed out, catching his jacket and dragging him forward. He twisted free, the fabric tearing, and struck again, this time at the exposed joint under its plating. A shriek of metal and flesh split the air, but the seeker only grew more frenzied. The girl had reached the skimmer, her hands flying over the controls. The engine whined, then sputtered. "It's locked," she shouted. Jack ducked under another swipe, grabbed a loose fuel canister from the deck, and hurled it at the Seeker's head. The metal cylinder bounced off with a hollow clang, but it gave him just enough time to sprint toward her. The Seeker came after them, claws tearing deep grooves into the landing pad. Jack vaulted into the skimmer, yanking a small charred panel off the dashboard. "You hotwire it," he told her, tossing the sphere into her lap. "I'll keep it busy." "You can't," she started, but he was already back on the deck. The Seeker circled low, its movements calculating now, as if it knew he was running out of space. Jack met its gaze and stepped forward, the storm wind whipping his hood back. "Come on then," he muttered. The skimmer's engine coughed to life behind him just as the Seeker pounced. He dove to the side, the claws missing by inches, and rolled toward the skimmer. The girl leaned over, her hand outstretched. Jack caught it, hauling himself inside as the skimmer lifted off. The Seeker's final lunge hit empty air, its claws raking sparks from the deck as they shot upward into the storm. Below, the landing pad shrank into the blur of rain and neon. But Jack knew the hunt wasn't over. Nothing that obsessed stopped because you got away once, and judging by the girl's expression as she clutched the sphere to her chest, she knew it too. The storm swallowed the skimmer as it climbed higher, lightning flashing so close that the hull vibrated with each strike. Jack kept one hand on the controls, the other gripping the side rail, as the wind tried to shove them off course. Beside him, the alien girl clutched the black sphere to her chest like it was her last heartbeat, her silver hair plastered to her face. Neither spoke. Every word felt like it would take too much oxygen from the cabin's thin air. When they finally broke through the clouds, the city below looked small, distant. For the first time in hours, Jack could see the stars scattered, like cold fire across the dark. The girl's gaze lingered on them for a moment before she looked down at the sphere in her hands. "You could have left me," she said quietly. Jack didn't answer right away, watching the horizon for movement. "Finally," he said, "not my style." She let out a breath that might have been a laugh, but it died quickly as the sphere pulsed harder, a deep hum filling the cockpit. Jack glanced at her. That normal, her lips pressed together. "No, it's reacting to something." A red light flashed on the skimmer's dash. Incoming lock. Before Jack could adjust course, a beam of pure energy lanced through the clouds ahead, barely missing their nose. The whole craft shuddered, alarms wailing. The girl gripped the dash, eyes wide. "They've sent a royal cruiser through the thinning storm ahead." Jack saw it, a massive warship descending through the atmosphere, black as obsidian, its hull carved with the crest she had shown him on her wrist. Smaller ships peeled away from it, like hunting dogs loosed from their leashes, their formation perfect, their intent clear. Jack swore under his breath, flipping switches and pushing the skimmer into a dive. The girl's voice was calm now. "But to calm, if they get us, you'll die quickly." "I won't." Jack's hands tightened on the controls. "Then we don't let them get us," he said, forcing the skimmer lower, weaving through the pockets of cloud and lightning. The smaller ships followed effortlessly, matching every turn. "They'll chase us to the ends of your world," she said, "unless we end it now." Her gaze dropped to the sphere. Jack caught the look. "You're not thinking. It's not just a map," she interrupted. "It's a key." She pressed her palm to the cracked surface, and golden light spilled into the cockpit. The hum deepened, the air thickening with static. The skimmer's instruments went wild, needles spinning, lights flickering. The pursuing ships drew closer, their weapons locking on. Jack shouted over the roar, "What happens when you use it?" Her eyes burned with something between fear and defiance. "They lose everything they came for." She turned the sphere once in her hands, then looked at him. "You can still let go, Jack," she said softly. He met her gaze, steady. "Not my style." Her fingers tightened around the sphere, the light flaring until it swallowed the storm, the stars, the city, everything. And in that final instant before the world dissolved, Jack realized the moment he'd grabbed her on that bridge. He'd signed up for a war, one he had no intention of losing.